Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Daring Dose Show. My name is Peace George. I am your humble host, and I have a guest in the house, Joey Chandler. Hello, Joey. How are you today?
Hello. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for honoring this invitation. We appreciate your time. Joey, could you please introduce yourself so that the audience can know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Joey Chandler. I am a purpose coach, and I help people mostly around relationships. And I help people figure out who they are at their core and then how they can create a relationship that reflects and support that. I'm also a dad. I'm actually going through my own separation. So I know the troubles of when you get things not quite right. And I live in Northern California, just north of San Francisco.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So let's talk about love and purpose. Like sometimes they clash, don't they? Let's talk about love and purpose. Which one do you find first? Which one is necessary? Which one isn't?
Well, what I found is that there are 5 main purposes in the world, love being one of them. Love, joy, happiness, excitement, and freedom. When I work with people, when we really figure out who they are at their core, it's one of those 5, not all the time, but the general. So love, joy, happiness, excitement, and freedom. So love is one of the main purposes that a person can be. Now, love also gets the act of love or being in love or finding love. You can be about joy and still want to have love in your life, but you're still about joy. So just because you're trying to find love doesn't mean you're about love. And so for me, it took me a while, and actually going through my own, as I said, I'm going through a separation and kind of doing that work and going through the therapy and really exploring what was working and what was not working. What I stumbled upon, what I really got is that I'm about people loving their life. That's who I am. And there were parts of me that were afraid to really own that over the past, honestly, about 20 years. And it showed up in my life in all sorts of different ways. But in the past, I guess maybe year, 18 months, where I really started to own that, I've been far more powerful, far more concise, far more fulfilled, even though I'm going through this, honestly, less than great experience. I'm far more clear on who I am. So I also want to talk about purpose a little bit, because again, you get both. And whenever you talk about purpose, you should always ask people what they mean by it, because purpose is one of those words that gets thrown out there a lot. And there are definitions of purpose, and they're very good. But the interpretation or how a person uses purpose in their life or in their teaching is going to be a little bit different. And so you should ask them, like, hey, what do you mean by purpose? So for me, what I say is that we all have something at our core: love, joy, happiness, excitement, or freedom, one of those things. And our purpose, why we are here, is to experience that thing and to share it with other people. That's in all of our actions. This podcast is a reflection of your purpose, but it is not your purpose. And any activity that you do, generally speaking, can't be your purpose, because you would have had a purpose when you were young, and you will have a purpose after you stop doing any activity. So it can't be any single activity, but it's who you are at your core and how you help yourself experience it and how you help other people experience it. Wow. And so what I do for relationships is we help figure out who are you at your core. And then how can you create a relationship that helps you experience that thing, and it supports you and reflects who you are and helps you grow in that, because none of us are perfect, but it just helps you be more of yourself.
Wow. Thank you very much, Joey. But but it's funny. It seems like when you get love, you lose purpose, or when you have purpose, you lose love. Why does it seem like it's not easy to have both? What are we doing wrong? I mean, go ahead, please.
Because we're missing this one really fundamental part. And it's a great question. And this is, how to say this, is that purpose is not a goal, or love is not a goal. Love is something you create. And again, it's the questions: how can I help myself experience whatever love means to you? And how can I help others experience that? And I know for me, like, I was like, hey, I wanted to get married, and I met an amazing woman, and we got married, and we had we have an incredible son, and we have a good life. But somewhere along the way, we stopped really creating the love, moving it forward. We're kind of like, I just wish it was great. And we assume that it's going to be great. But love is an act. And so I think one of the problems that we get into is that we start thinking that love should be a certain way, and that if it's not a certain way, then there's a problem. And what we can start to do is say, okay, how can I help myself experience love in this situation? And that's going to be different when you first meet somebody, and you got hormones going, and you feel great touching everybody, and it's it's an amazing thing. That's going to be a different, what it takes for you to experience love is going to be different then versus when you've been together for 4 or 5 years, or after you get married, or after you have kids. There's going to be differences. And I think the more clear you are on who you are, you can start to figure out what is it that you need in those different time frames. And also, the more clear you are on who you are, the more you can actually interact with other people and say, hey, or your partner, let's say, what do you need? What does love mean to you? How can we create that together? But it's this whole creation process as opposed to a place to get to.
Wow, thank you for that great insight, actually, because you're right. People see it as a goal, and that's probably why most people get it wrong. I like that you said creating love. I like that you said that. And it's the continuous one for me that really gets me, because it seemed like, after the spark and the whole jittery shaking, sensation, and then we're just there. And you start to wonder why we have very old people still very much in love. But I've never heard anyone talk about purpose and love. Honestly, like, people talk about purpose and then people talk about love. So it's really incredible that with you can bring it together and say, this is a balance. But I'm going to ask you this, Joe. Why would it be wrong if I asked which one should you have first? Is it purpose before finding love, or finding love and then finding purpose? Which one's, because I'm asking this question because we have a whole lot of young people, who are all about, the society is crazy about this finding love thing. And then, people forget what's important. And I don't want to sound like love is also not important, but which one do you think? Do you think you can strike a balance, or do you think when you, like you said, when you get yourself, you get your identity, then you can relate with someone else better, and even explain what you know about yourself so that they can understand you more? So my question for you is, which one outweighs the other? Looking at yourself now, if you had to talk to the 20-year-old Joey, what would you say about purpose and love, or purpose before love, or love before purpose? What would you say?
It's so interesting, because as just saying it, I realize that I have this approach. The way I approach it is that you actually don't have that question: is it purpose or love? The question is who are you at your core, and how can you help yourself, and how can you help other people experience that? And so inside of that, part of that experience will be, this is not for everyone, but if a romantic relationship is part of your self-expression, of you having a full life, then you're asking yourself, okay, who am I? And then how can I help myself experience a great, what kind of relationship would it take for me to continue to experience myself? What kind of relationship would I like to have another person be a part of? So I'm continually asking back and forth. So I'm basically, again, asking, who am I? How can I help myself? How can I help others? And inside of that experience, the vision of a relationship, you're going to do things for yourself, and you're going to do things for the other person, and you're going to start to create that. Now, the same thing you could say, okay, let's say you're a, someone like me, like a coach or a consultant, and you're like, okay, who am I? What is it that I can help myself? What kind of business can I create that would help me experience more of myself? And then what kind of business could I create that would help other people experience what I have to offer? And then the more you get clear on who you are, the more your branding is going to line up with with yourself. The more the experience of your clients are going to have when they come through your sales process and your funnels and however they interact with you. The more clear you are on who you are, the more you're sharing that, the more they're going to have the sense of like, yeah, this person is, they're true and they're authentic and they're honest. They're being themselves. No one's perfect. I don't think we expect perfection, but they're doing their best to try to be themselves. Like for me, love is about courage, connection, and contribution.
Oof, I like that.
That's what love means for me. And my business, as a coach, is really, when I sat this down, I was like, let me think about this. And it was so interesting because what I did is I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm about people connecting with themselves and connecting with others, about being a contribution, again, being able to contribute to other people, but also allowing others to contribute to them, that back and forth. And then the courage one was the one that really got me. I was like, how does courage shows up? Because courage is one thing where you're like, I need the courage to do the action. So it's kind of in order to, and that is okay. But one thing that just like my head, I was like, oh, that is what I want. That feeling when you are being courageous and you step into that thing, you jump off the cliff into the water, you ask that girl out to date, or you stand, you're like, wait a minute, I can sell this thing, or, whatever that thing is when you're actually being courageous, that feeling, I love that feeling. Wow. That's the feeling. And so it's not the act of being courageous, it's the being of courageous. That's the feeling that I want to bring. Because just imagine if, I can remember when very first time I asked my wife, now soon to be ex-wife, out, like that moment is ingrained in my brain. And it was a moment where it was amazing and it worked out incredible, but I love that feeling. And so for me, like, what if I could, the next time I create a relationship, what if I could bring a sense of courage that I had on the very first time I asked her out? What if I could bring that sort of courage to what our life will be like, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years into, my next relationship? That sense of energy and excitement and fear and worry that you come when you're being courageous.
Wow.
So I hope I got a little excited there.
I love it. I love it. And I want to say thank you for sharing your story, honestly. That's so easy to connect with. And I appreciate how open you are. And if I hear you well, in knowing your identity, you find your purpose. In knowing your identity, you can create true love. So like you said, it's not a goal. And it's good when we kind of see it like that. The being, we're so much sometimes running after the becoming, we forget the present to create that good life and all of that. And thank you so much for sharing. So you've talked about identity, and then love and then purpose. And I like that. Like something you mentioned here, you said contribution, right? You said contribution. So I'm going to pick your brain on that a bit. Contribution. So somebody comes, because I'm a relationship coach also, and I always get this, my partner doesn't support me, in this. He doesn't support me. When I wasn't doing anything, he was okay with it. But now I found my purpose, and everyone is finding their purpose, of course. So it says now I found my purpose, and he's not happy with it. Contribution. Some people don't even understand what contribution is. Should it be a two-way thing? And how do you really contribute? Because you may just think that you're doing your best at contributing. What if the other person doesn't see it that way? How do you then contribute? How do you speak their language when it comes to contribution? Because I got a lady who said to me, okay, so my husband will say, oh, well done, I love what you're doing, but he'll never show up to my meetings. And other people are coming to my meetings to actually support me. And I'm saying, okay, but what if that's how he knows, that's the best way he knows to support? And that kind of thing, what would you say? Contribution in a relationship, what does it mean to either side?
Uh, so I think the best thing to do actually is, because contribution, in all honesty, it's my word. Like that's the word that I use. So I can talk about what it means to me, and I can ask other people like, what does contribution mean to you, and we can have a conversation. But this is where, if you do the work, and if people can go to my website, it's not complicated, the process to figure out like, what does love mean to you,
Mm.
and you get clear on it. And I ask people, I have a podcast where I ask people all the, most every day, or at least, multiple times a week, what does love mean to you? And as far as I can tell, the vast majority of people are going to have a different definition.
Mm.
And each definition is really, really powerful, but they apply to other people. Or,
Mm.
sorry, they don't, but they don't apply to other people. They apply to you.
Do
So
it.
so like for that, your client there whose husband is saying great job but not showing up at the meetings, like love means something to her. So I would ask her, like, what does love mean to you? And she would say, whatever she would say. If she's at meetings, she's probably a leader, or she contributes in some way. So maybe contribution is a word that she says, or connection. And then she can start to explore what that means to her. And then she can ask her husband what those words mean to him, and then also what love means to him, and you can start to explore that.
Wow.
And the problem is that love is so core to who we are as a person. And there's a researcher, her name is Helen Fisher, and she basically studied the brain. She basically put people into an MRI machine, and they looked at photos of their loved ones, and they noticed the parts of the brain that
Mm.
got triggered by looking at their loved ones. And it turns out it's very, very primal. It's very core to who we are. So loving is not an intellectual experience. It is a core, the human experience sort of thing. And because of that, love has been with us for as long as we've been around. The
Right.
very first thing that any parent wants to do is love their baby.
Mm.
And the baby is trying to show love back in some way. They can't do it in any way. They cry and they do whatever they do. But we are constantly trying to figure it out. And that's why there's so many books and stories and people talking about love. But when it comes down to it, I think it is as individual as the people.
Mm.
So when you're talking about love, the first thing to get is like, what does love actually mean to you?
Mm.
Figure that out. And then you can say, okay, here's how I help myself experience that. What are the boundaries? Maybe this person, she needs to put a boundary and like, look, this is kind of a game changer for me. I need to know that you're going to come to at least one meeting. I
Mm.
want to know that you're there, because if you don't come, it means something.
Wow.
And but the more that you have these conversations about who you are, then the more you can have these conversations with other people. And this is the real beauty of really looking at getting clear on who you are at your core, is because you and I can talk about, like, this is a safe place for me to talk about love.
Mm.
You and I, we know each other a little bit, and this is going to go out in the world, but it's not like I'm talking to my boss or someone I'm dating right now. I don't have a lot of fear. I can stumble. I can say, I can work things out. I can build up what I call my purpose muscles. I can
Mm.
be in
Purpose
this
muscles. I like that.
in this conversation. I can practice talking about love, courage, connection, and contribution.
Mm.
I can practice this. So the next time that I want to go and I have a date, or an investor, or a client, or somebody that's there's a little more pressure, let's just say,
Mm-hmm.
I've practiced it more so I can talk about it. So if you look at who you are at your core, you can actually talk to your friends and your girlfriends and your guy friends, just talking about it. And then when you go talk to your husband, because there's maybe a little more pressure there, you've practiced it a little bit, and it comes across as a little bit more natural. Or
Wow.
vice versa. Maybe talking to your husband is the place where you can feel the most safe. And you practice there, and you take that same energy into your workplace when you're talking to your boss or a client. But because if you practice being in different places, know a person, and then when you learn from something on your business side, it's going to help you in your relationship side, and vice versa.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I like the way, thank you so much, Joey, because I like the way it keeps coming back to your core, your core. So if I get you right, like you have to know you first before you can even create something with somebody else. So good. You
Well, you
mentioned
you can, you want to say this, you can create a lot of things with, people create stuff all the time. You don't
love.
need to know. It just may not be, it just, in the end, it may not support you. Is if you
Mm,
want a relationship that supports you. And look, if you just want to have a relationship where it is what it is and you go do whatever you want to do and all that kind of stuff, totally awesome. Just be clear that that's what you're doing.
wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. You also mentioned the words that I love. You talked about boundaries. Okay. So bringing it down to the core, most people, I want you to talk about boundaries because I feel like most people think that when you set boundaries, you're setting it for somebody else. Like there are no boundaries for you who is setting that. So I want you to talk about boundaries a little bit. How does it help when we talk about love and purpose? What's the role of boundaries in that?
Yeah, boundaries are everything, because basically boundaries are saying I will do this or I won't do this. I will take these actions that are aligned with who I am, or I will not take these actions that are aligned with who I am. And the more, again, and it's a muscle you just build up. A boundary that a lot of us know is working out and eating the way that we should. you
Yes.
know
Yes.
that piece of cake is a boundary. There's a boundary there, and we
Mm.
either choose to honor that boundary or we don't.
Mm.
And again, there's nothing wrong, or maybe have no boundary there, but whatever your food boundaries are, or your working out boundaries that you either do or you don't do, we cross through them. And the interesting thing about boundaries is, again, it's a muscle. If you continue to break the boundaries that you say, you're going to get very good at breaking your boundaries.
Mm. Wow.
You just, you build up the muscle. Like, it doesn't matter what I say, I'm going to eat that cake. It doesn't matter what diet I go on, I'm going to eat that whatever, and you build up the muscle. On the other side, if you build up the muscle of saying, this is what I want, or this is what I want to do, it will be there. I'll just share this. So like I said, I'm going through a separation, and I just, honestly, yesterday I do have I put the dating profile up to kind of see what it was like. And I got a response from someone who sounds very interested. She responded in a really good way.
Mm.
But I had given myself the boundary that I was going to have my divorce, if not complete, at least in the process of going,
Mm.
before because I didn't want to get into I didn't want to be one of those guys who sounds great, but then they're like a total dirtbag because they still haven't worked through all their stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be one of those guys, but I was really tempted. I was really, really tempted to say, but that was a boundary that I put in, and I had to write back to her and say, like, look, I'm still working through some stuff. I've actually taken all my dating profiles down, but I really
Wow.
want, I thanked her because her response was an incredible response. And I'm like,
Wow.
if it's okay, I'd like to get in touch with you, in a month or two when I get stuff worked out. But that was a boundary, and that was a self-imposed boundary. And I was like,
No
but
hearts broken. No hearts broken.
and no hearts broken. And the thing is that I knew that if I were to, if anything were to happen with this person, that I wouldn't fully be able to be myself in that situation. Because if I was trying to hide something or not, and that I wouldn't be myself. So that's a boundary.
Wow.
And so you build up the muscle, and
Hmm.
you build up the ability, and we all have boundaries. Spending, right? You spend money on the credit card or not. You follow your budget or you don't. Those are all boundaries. And again, if you can take actions that are aligned with who you are, then you can say, I think it's easier to say, this is what I want, or this is what I don't. You can take the actions that you know to do, or know not to do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Joey. So to get love, to create love, you have to, first of all, have a knowledge of who you are. I like this. I like this a lot because it's not a message that I have even heard. But having to hear purpose and purpose and love, purpose, purpose and love are like two different things. I've
Yeah.
never heard it blended in this way.
Can I
And I,
can I ask you a question?
yes, please.
Can I ask you a question then? And so, what does purpose mean to you?
So to me, purpose, again, it's for me, it's helping people. That's where I get my fulfillment, when I help people I believe that anybody who, I come in contact with, there's always a reason why they come into my life. And I try to find that reason and see how I can give value to them, as opposed to me actually looking for how I can kind of like grab something from them. Or for me, it's giving, even giving myself. But of course, like you said, there's a boundary, and that boundary that I set, it for me is the safe place for me to say, okay, when has it gone too far? And looking in our society, I think that's what is missing. So love isn't wrong if it's not seen as a goal. Like you rightly said, love is not wrong if it's something that you create out of you, first of all, getting yourself right, and then being able to offer yourself, as opposed to, you can't offer a value that you don't even know that you have. So for me, purpose is discovering who I am and how I can be valuable to whoever I come in contact with. And of course, I can't solve all their problems, but what do I have that I can give them that will, bring a solution to something that they have that is a problem or an issue in their life? So for me, that's what it is.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, it's beautiful. And just the one part that I would I think the one part that's a little bit missing that would help in that is the idea that you're also contributing to yourself. How can you contribute to yourself in that moment of you're helping that? How can I contribute to this person? How can I, help them? How is that also helping you? And if you can see that back and forth, then I think you will start to do, and this is not just you, but lots of people, you will start to do situations where you have the experience of a giving and a getting at the same time, where and if you're giving, you're over giving, you're giving, and you're not getting what you need, then that is actually not being a purpose. That is something else. That is because you're not asking for what you want. And you're not saying, hey, I need, for me to experience, let's say your purpose is around joy. If I have great joy in helping other people, but I don't ask for what I need to experience joy, at some point it's just not going to work.
You're going to burn out.
You're going to burn out. But you can, and it's hard. And this is where the practice comes in, asking for what you want.
Being bold enough to do that. The
to
courage.
be bold enough.
That's why the courage comes in.
Yeah. Wow. And to be in a relationship and say, this is what I want in a relationship. And I think this is something I've started doing with people, and it works really well, is once you figure out who you are, rather than thinking about the type of person that you want to be with, think about the relationship you want to create.
Woo.
And then as you think about the relationship that you want to create and how that would benefit you and how that would help you fulfill you, you can then say, okay, what type of person would align with this? What type of person would also benefit from being in this type of relationship? And then how might I be able to find them?
Wow. Thank you so much. I think that's actually what's missing, like you said, or else you're going to burn out. And that's why everyone is getting it wrong in relationship, parental relationships, whatever. That's why because there's always one side that seems to be given much too much, while the other side is just chilling and getting it all. Yeah. What I also like in what you said about courage, connection, and contribution is the core that seem to be, in all of these words. Connection, it's a two-way thing. Contribution, there's the co in it.
That's why I never thought of that. You're totally right. Yeah.
When you said you can't keep giving and giving and not getting back, and if this is the core, there's a co in it. So you're going to someone to show them your love, or to tell them how much, but you know that they have something to bring too. If you get what I mean, in the place of contribution, you're bringing something to the table. Like I said, you're bringing value to the table. How do they fit into your life also? Or else you will fit into their life, and you'll be useless. And we say it's a co thing, if I hear you well. But before there is a connection or a contribution, you have to first of all kind of like look inside of you, know who you are, which is the core. Again, that's the internal communication has to intrapersonal communication has to go first of you thinking, okay, so I know myself well enough. And then you can go out there and pitch whatever you want to pitch. Tell them that's when you can actually tell them that this is my boundary. This is where, this is what I can't take, because you already know what you can take and it's already recorded. There's so much clarity in just sitting here, Joey, and listening to you. And I can tell you how much you have just something that you changed, that I can assure you has changed my life, is the fact that now that you said it, I my emphasis is always on how I can give myself, but most of the time there's no giving back. So we're leaning, and the more you lean down and down and down, you're going to fall, you're going to crash. So I want to thank you for that. That's a takeaway for me, and I do not take it for granted. Thank you so much, Joey. So what are your last words for our viewers right now?
Oh, well, thank you. That meant a lot. I love that part. I actually hadn't never thought of that, but you're 100% right. And just the other thing that I would also say is that on one side, there's the giving, like sometimes we give too much, but then on the other side, sometimes we take too much.
Ooh.
There is a back and forth. And some people, I think some people are naturally inclined to give more, and that can present its own problems. And then also other people are naturally inclined to take more, and that can present its own problems. So there are back, and you may do that in different relationships. With one person, you may act a little bit one way. With your mom or dad, you may act a little bit differently. Your boss, it's there's a little bit of a back and just again bringing awareness. Who am I? How am I helping myself in this situation? How am I helping the other person? And that's the part. And that's the main thing that I just want to leave people with is getting clear. And the thing to understand about who you are at your core, it is so much more powerful and so much closer to the surface than you realize.
Wow.
It doesn't take a lot of work to get really precise. And the thing is that because it's so in tune with who we are as people, and we've been playing with it, even if we didn't have the exact language, we've been playing with it for a long time. Everybody who's ever went on a date in middle school or asked a girl out or struggled with dating, whatever it is, we've been thinking about the stuff for so long that it is right there. And if we can just scratch the surface a little bit and ask a few key questions and create the space for a person to say, hey, this is who I am.
Wow.
It's right there. And you can start to take actions and align your life with that. I'm not going to say it happens immediately. And it will probably take more work than you want, but it doesn't take as much work as you think it will.
Wow.
And yeah, and if anybody wants, and this is what I do, like they come to my website, you can walk through just some simple questions on how to clarify who you are.
Find you.
I'm at joeychandler.net and Joey Chandler. Yeah, and Joey Chandler 70 across all social media platforms. So they can find me. And the other part that I want to put in is that a lot of times love in relationships, we do a lot of work on ourselves and alone. And I'm here to say that love and definitely purpose, it's a team sport. You want to have a community of people that's going to give you the encouragement and the support so that you can have the courage to go, to say maybe no to somebody, to say, hey, this isn't right for me, or to have the courage to ask somebody out, or to, ask for what you want in a relationship. Having a community of people that are along a similar pathways or asking similar questions, a similar journey, even if they never become like a romantic partner, but having that type of community, I think is really helpful. Wow. And you can actually hear it. Anybody wants to come to my podcast, The Love Launch, that's the name of the podcast. You can just hear people over and over again talk about what love means to them. And we're just building a community of people around there that are talking about what love means and how we can have more of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joe. That is so good. Everyone needs support. Everyone needs an assistance. And if you ever need clarity, please you need to get hold of Joey. He's always there. That's what he does. And this is a man who knows his audience. Obviously, you've heard him. I've learned a lot, and I hope that you have too. Thank you so much, our viewers, for sticking with us till the end. We appreciate your time. Thank you, Joey, for even coming and just showing up. We love you. Thank you so much. You don't know how much these things that you've said, because I've been writing things down here. You don't know how much this means to me. Sometimes to have that courage, indeed, you need a community, or just someone to tell you can do it. Not that you don't know, but you need to hear it for somebody else. And Joe will be there. Everyone needs a coach. Everyone needs a coach. And Joe is here, a love and relationship coach, and a purpose coach. I like the combination so much. I love it. Thank you so much, Joe, for spending your time with us this evening. God bless you. Yes, and that's it for us here at the Daring Dose. Thank you so much for sticking with us. God bless you. Until next time, it's bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.